This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we discuss all the news in the world of sports. As always, my name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
We are back here on a Friday, leading you in to a very fun, action-packed weekend. Any plans this weekend?
No, I have to work this weekend. That's basically going to be my weekend.
I want to clean my car, but with the exception of that, I don't have anything planned. Just a little bit of work, but
I don't have anything planned, but usually what I do, the people that I work with on Sunday night, is we do like karaoke stuff. I'm not a good singer by any stretch.
Neither am I, but karaoke's always fun.
Yes.
I love going. There's this karaoke bar downtown. It's a sushi. I forget what it's called, but it's a sushi and karaoke bar. Mm-hmm. It's down by Tower Theater. Mm-hmm. So we go there all the time, and it's a fun time. So
yeah.
I'm not gonna dispute that, but that sounds pretty good. But one thing I will definitely be looking at tomorrow is something we'll talk about in the next segment, and that's the Warriors going into OKC to take on the Thunder.
Right.
Kevin Durant's first return back to OKC. We'll save that for the next segment when we talk some NBA. First, we're going to talk about college basketball. Last night, we had, honestly, probably the best midweek day or night, whatever you want to say, of any night so far in college basketball. A lot of great matchups, headlined by, of course, Duke and North Carolina renewing their rivalry. The last 96 meetings, these teams literally each had 48 wins.
Right. And
scored the exact same amount of points. Like, that shows you just how even this rivalry has been for the last, I don't know, what is that, 24 years?
Yeah.
Twice a year?
Right.
I mean, maybe they'll meet in the conference tournament or whatever. But,
right.
So, I mean, give or take 22, 23, 24 years. So that just shows you how even this rivalry's been. Both teams winning national championships. So, I mean, a great, great rivalry. But last night, Duke at home comes out on top over North Carolina.
Right.
Number 18, Duke wins 86-78 over the number 8 ranked Tar Heels. Our boy Grayson Allen in, I guess you can say, the news for doing something good for a change and not tripping anyone.
Not yet.
Well, did you see the other day he got called for a tripping foul?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, well, here we go again. Like,
Dude, at this point, he can't control it. Like, I'm dead serious when I say it. Like, at this point, it's like just built into his DNA, like Draymond Green kicking people in the junk. Like, I think it's so hardwired into him, like, you're not going to take it out. And you just got to hope he doesn't do it like 17 times a game.
Yeah, but he gets called for a tripping foul. I'm like, well, how is he even not suspended? I mean, another trip, although it wasn't, I guess you can say, blown out of proportion by people in the media.
But when he got suspended for it, was he literally like stuck his leg out, like just super obviously.
And his emotional tirade. But anyways, he's in the news last night for doing something really good for a change. He shot 7 of 12 from 3. He had 25 points. He was their best player in their leading scorer, and he really led Duke into victory last night. Here's an interesting story that I read about this game prior to the game. So the game was at Cameron Indoor Stadium, which is where Duke plays, and they have the Cameron Crazies. Probably, I guess you can say, the most notable student section in all of college, football, basketball, anything.
There's probably some SEC teams that probably are crazy, but yeah, I see where you're going.
Like, most notable. Like, everyone knows that their student section is called the Cameron Crazies. And
they slap the floor, they do the thing with the hands. Yeah,
They go absolutely nuts. Did you know that they have to pass a test to get into the student section?
Like, when you, like, it's a test, like, when you, like, walk in there?
Kind or of think of it as like a proficiency test.
Right. That's to get in the student section when you, like,
to get a ticket. Like, I read this story yesterday.
Like, you have to, like, answer, like, questions about, like, old Duke teams or something like that, or?
Basically. So I read this yesterday prior to the game. and it's 37 open-ended questions. So it's not multiple choice, so you can't guess on anything.
Right.
It's like short answer. Mm-hmm. It's like who scored the most points in the most recent scrimmage game.
Wow.
Like literally stuff that you'd have to be at every single game and be a die-hard fan to know.
Right.
I mean, that's just how crazy the student section is and how passionate they are. And that's why I love college sports so much.
Like, that's... Like, I know a little bit about Duke. Like, I can tell you, like, you know, great old Duke players and stuff like that. And I can tell you about hated Duke players, be it J.J. Redick or Wojciechowski, stuff like that. Tell you about, I'm trying to think of old, like Elton Brand or Grant Hill. Like, people like that who used to be, like, on old Duke teams. But, yeah, that is some dedication to your team.
You literally have to, I forget what the percentage, you have to pass a certain number of questions for a certain percentage to even get a ticket into the student section. Like, that's how crazy and passionate you have to be to even get into there.
Right.
And it's stuff like that that really makes me appreciate college sports more, because they're in it for the pure passion of the game. There's no money involved.
Well, the fans are.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And it's all just basically for bragging rights, because Duke beating North Carolina in the regular season, I mean, yeah, it looks great and all, but does it mean anything? Like, no. I mean, North Carolina with the loss goes to 21-5. Duke with the win goes to 19-5. North Carolina's 9-3 in conference. Duke is 7-4 in conference. So, I mean, North Carolina is probably still in a better position come tournament time, and I honestly just trust them more. I think they're a better team. Obviously, they were the national runner-up from last year.
Right.
Duke came in as number one team in the preseason with Allen and a lot of these young freshmen, but it hasn't really turned out for them. But I guess you can say they're playing a little better since Mike Krzyzewski came back to coaching about a week ago. So I guess there's some good news there. We'll have to see how North Carolina can recoup and if they can win the rematch a little bit down the road from now at their own home court. So, I mean, I guess technically 7 miles away isn't much of a difference, but nevertheless, there is a lot more Duke fans there than there is North Carolina fans. So Duke comes out on top there. And then staying in college basketball, out on the West Coast, we had a doozy. We had another top 10 matchup between number 5 Oregon, who are playing really, really well as of late, and the number 10 UCLA. So Oregon really dominated a lot of this game. They were up by 9 at halftime. They were up by as many as 19 early in the first half. But UCLA with a big second half comes out on top over the Ducks, 82-79. Lonzo Ball continues to impress. He hit an absolutely clutch 3 with 35 seconds left from, past NBA range with the defender in front of his face. I mean, the kid continues to impress. He had 15 points. He had 11 rebounds. He only had 1 assist, which is not really typical of the young freshman, but he continues to look good, Anthony.
Yeah, no, he is. I mean, this is supposed to be one of the best draft classes, right? Because you got Markelle Fultz and everybody else that's kind of in that range of being the number 1 overall pick, but he's the one, Lonzo Ball is, who seems to be the most, adept to doing everything, points, rebounds, assists, everything else like that. Because, if you just look at his numbers this season, like you said, as a freshman, forget about the fact that he's, only been doing this for a year. He's still 15.6 rebounds and almost 8 assists. Like, he's someone who, at a very early age, figured out how to basically get everything together. And, like you say, he only had 1 assist, but he still, forget about the fact that he didn't have a lot of assists. He showed range in this game. He showed the fact that they could be down by a lot and still bring them back. Like, you see these little things, right? Like, you don't have to have, like, a triple-double every game. You don't got to go Russell Westbrook every single game. You just have to show, in this game, you can do this, because it was, one of the top 5 teams, at least at the time. They'll probably drop because they lost, but top 5 team in Oregon. And you're like, oh, okay, great. So you can, lead your team back against adversity, and you can also hit a game winner from range, stuff like this. Like, you see little things, and he's just like a freak right now as far as, bringing his team back. They're the 10th ranked team. They've only lost 3 games, so I don't know why they were 10th and Oregon was 5th, even though they had the same amount of losses at the time. But yeah, Lonzo Ball is just, he's probably the number 1 player in the draft and one of the most fun players just to see what he can do on any given night.
He's definitely the guy that I would build my team around. I've praised him so much, as opposed to his little brother, who, we've talked about it before.
You hate him so much.
We have a little bit of an issue, LaMelo Ball and I, but so I can't say anything bad about Lonzo, though. The kid is sensational.
Right.
He's got great height. He's 6'6", a true point guard, a traditional point guard, as opposed to how the game of basketball has really transitioned now to where it's basically a playmaker with the ball in their hands and a guy who's really good at getting to the basket like Westbrook or Kyrie, or a guy who's just got a lot of range like Steph Curry. And he's kind of a traditional point guard. Reminds me a lot of a Jason Kidd.
Right.
Really unselfish. I mean, he shoots great. He's shooting 54% from the field. He's shooting 43% from three-point range. Not the greatest free throw shooter right now, but I mean, that might change over time.
And that's like, the one thing if you're going to improve, you're going to improve obviously on things as you get more time or whatever, and that's the one thing that he has to improve on. And it's also kind of funny that they won this game because they lost by 2 the last time when they played. It was the first loss that UCLA had, so now he gets a little bit of revenge in this game. Dylan Brooks, he had a 3-pointer that basically won the game for Oregon last time, so it was one of those things now to where he gets a little bit of revenge. And now if they meet in the playoffs or something like that, then you can do a best out of 3 thing.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, when you look at the Pac-12, Oregon's really good. UCLA is obviously really good. And Arizona have really been playing well as of late. So I think it's really between those 3. But, I mean, as far as Ball goes, he's definitely the guy I would – if I had the number 1 pick, depending on who it is, I mean, Boston could end up with the Nets' number 1 pick. So
right.
You already have Isaiah Thomas there, so I'm not really sure how that would fit.
Well, no, you can do the opposite kind of thing with that. You can't have a
5'7" shooting guard.
It's fine. I mean,
it's fine.
He's
going to go up against guys who are Lonzo Ball height, 6'5", 6'6".
He already does that already. Playing guys.
So he's going to guard Klay Thompson.
He's not going to guard Klay Thompson, but it's going to be an opposite when you play different offense-defense things. So basically, you have Lonzo Ball do the defensive things. You put
right. I see what you're saying.
You put Isaiah on the smaller guy, but then on offense, you kind of it's reversed like that depending on what side of the court you are.
I see what you're saying. Or I mean, even we mentioned how deep the draft class is come this summer when the NBA draft comes up. It's possible that they could even trade back a little bit, get another first-round pick, because this draft class is honestly shaping up to be one of the best that we've had in most recent times. So. Right. You could even do something like trade back, because that's all Boston really need right now. Number 2 in the East, really solid team. You have an all-star in Thomas to build around. Just get some more younger guys that you hope can develop. And, I mean, honestly, I think they're set. I mean, the East in basketball, we'll talk about in the next segment. It's going to be really interesting because I feel like Boston's good. I like what the Wizards are doing.
Right.
You still have the threat of Toronto, and then you have Cleveland. So it could be very interesting. But anyways.
Also, you had my boy Bill Walton at the UCLA game.
Oh, I mean, Bill Walton, he's always a character, and I loved him when he was on TV. And still, even when he does the few TV appearances he does, he always...
he's the best.
He always turns up. But anyways, in other college basketball news, Gonzaga win by 30 over Loyola Marymount. They remain undefeated. They're just 5 games away from completing an undefeated regular season. But on Saturday, they will be facing their toughest matchup of the season. They're going to go in to face number 20 St. Mary's in their house. Gonzaga did already beat them this year, but that was a home game for them, so they're going to go on the road to face the number 20 ranked Gales. We'll take our first break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about NBA, the Warriors and Cavaliers and the Thunder getting a lot of headlines. We had the Thunder last night and the Cavaliers. We have the Thunder tomorrow against the Warriors. We'll talk about those 2 games, those 2 stories, and more after the break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
The Cavaliers and the Thunder met again last night in OKC. The Thunder come out on top 118-109. Russell Westbrook continues to impress. I mean, he had a triple-double last night as if you didn't already know that was happening. 29 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists. Although he did shoot 11 of 27.
Yeah.
Didn't have the greatest shooting night, but I guess that's like typical Russ shooting night. Takes 30 shots to score 35. But anyway, so the Thunder do win. Tyronn Lue did say that he thought about resting all 3 of the big 3 in Cleveland between LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, but all 3 of them did play. Kyrie Irving had 28 points. LeBron James had had 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 7 assists, and Kevin Love with 15 and 12 boards. But nevertheless, the Thunder do come out on top. The Cavaliers kind of just like going through the motions right now. I mean, they just simply cannot consistently put some good performances out there on the court. And I kind of teased it in the first segment there. The East is going to be kind of interesting to me come playoff time. I feel like there's 4 teams. Obviously, the Cavs are still a favorite, and I do think they'll still go to the finals. But I feel like Boston is really good. Could give them a little bit of run for their money. I feel like the Wizards have a great backcourt. Could give them a little run for their money. And then the Raptors, same thing. Good backcourt. We saw them last year, although the Cavaliers kind of smoked them. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they had to get there for a reason, so they won a couple of series. Yeah,
the thing with the Cavaliers is they're a little bit hurt. J.R. Smith is still hurt. You're bringing in people, what's his name, Kyle Korver. You just brought in Derek Williams. Like, this whole thing's still kind of a little bit in flux, and you get the thing where, and fine, like, LeBron's still killing at 25, basically 26 points, 8 assists. He's still someone who's the best player in the game, basically 26, 8, and 8. But he's somebody that is playing the most minutes in the NBA. He's someone who you're relying on all the time. And nothing against LeBron, dude's 32 years old. Like, you should probably start relying on other people, because we've seen once he's not there, the team isn't the same, even though you have a couple other all-stars in Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving. The team is basically all on LeBron James' shoulder. And he can still do it, obviously. He can still be the guy, number one guy on your team, the guy that you have to basically, when everything's going wrong, be like, all right, you deal with this, and everything we're talking about, like, oh, the Cleveland Cavaliers or this or that, they're still 36 and 16, right? They're still the number one team in the East. They're still a really, really, really good team. It's just, I think we've seen all the other teams in the past few years. We've seen how good the Warriors have been. We've seen how good the Spurs have been. We've seen how good the Rockets are this year, right? We see all these teams are doing well, and we just expect the Cavaliers to basically at this point be, they're 36 and 16, but we expect them to be, something like 42 and 10 or something like that. I think we kind of expect like really amazing things from them. And since they're not living up to those expectations, we think something's wrong. And it could just be the fact that it's January, it's before the All-Star break. They're probably tired, and LeBron's probably not, as I don't want to say like not as focused, because it makes it seem like he's not trying, but it's just a different, like, you've been playing for so long. Yeah, like, well, you've been playing for so long, and like the All-Star game's coming up, and you're just like, all right, can we just get to this break? Like, I just want to get to this break, kind of thing.
I mean, they are 11-9 in 2017,
right?
So not doing too good.
True.
I mean, so I don't know. I feel like
the thing is though, like you talked to all the teams, Boston and Toronto and everything else. Honestly, like when it becomes the playoffs, do you think any team's actually going to beat them in the Eastern Conference?
I really don't. I think come playoff time, that's when the game kind of slows down. In a series, the better team, I truly do believe, wins.
Boston I would be afraid of a little bit, but every other team, Toronto, they've tried that for the last few years. That hasn't done anything close. And there's no other team really in the Eastern Conference. You talked about Washington. They're doing well, and they finally figured out how to use Otto Porter well. John Wall's doing well, and Bradley Beal's been healthy more or less.
Think about that game on Monday to overtime.
And that game was amazing.
They pushed them to a great game. So if we could see a series like that, even in the semifinals, right now the Wizards are the 3 seed, so they would not meet the Cavs in the semifinals. But anyways, if things change, if they drop to the 4, there's always differences. It's not even the All-Star break yet, but it could be interesting. Cleveland, I feel like they're kind of with you, just kind of going through the motions, not really caring much, kind of just waiting around until postseason time.
You don't really have as many reasons to be, motivated just sounds like the wrong word. But the point is that, okay, you take a team like Golden State. Yeah, they, were the best in the league last year, 73-9, right? But you brought in, I think you took 7 of the players and swapped them out, from Harrison Barnes to Andrew Bogut to even some other like tinier players, Leandro Barbosa. Like, you kind of like, the whole team was in flux because you moved all these players around outside of like Draymond, Clay, Steph, and them. So you have these things to adjust with Kevin Durant. You also have the fact that you lost. Like, you have all these kind of motivating factors. Russell Westbrook just wants to basically go every night, neck first to the rim and try and prove that he's the best player in the league. Isaiah Thomas, him being 5'9" is going to be motivation for him every single night and trying to be the number one team in the East. The Houston Rockets, James Harden didn't make the playoffs last year. Like, all these things that you can have motivation from, to where the Cavaliers, their team is basically the same. LeBron just got the title again. And it's, one of those things where it's just like that, I have to prove X, Y, and Z isn't necessarily there for them the way it is for other teams.
I think that's a good point. I do think you're right, but you got to go off recent history, and 2017 has not been good to them. In 20 games, they have 11 wins.
Right.
They're just not really playing well, and I feel like you have to be playing well going into the playoffs to really make an impact.
Sure.
So perhaps they can turn it around. The All-Star break, as you mentioned, is looming next week. So that could be a time where they kind of regroup, get their feet back from underneath them, and start playing well again. But we're going to stick in the NBA. Tomorrow, the headliner, prime time, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 out here on the West Coast.
Right.
Kevin Durant and the Warriors going in to take on Russell Westbrook and the Thunder. Durant's first game back in OKC since he decided to celebrate 4th of July by joining Golden State.
He is going to get so booed.
Think so?
Oh, my God. Are you serious?
Well, listen.
In Oklahoma City?
I'm trying to play a little devil's advocate.
All
I
right.
know he's going to get booed. If I was a fan going to the game, I would boo him as well. But you have to remember what Durant did for the city. He's still doing a lot of charity work there, does a lot of work with the groups, with the kids and everything. And he really was in Oklahoma City every single year they've been a franchise. He really put them on the map, kind of.
Yeah.
So you have to thank him a little bit for that, but he did turn the other cheek on them. So, of course, you're going to boo him.
So, yeah, he's been in the league for as long as OKC has because he played his first year in Seattle.
Yes.
Russell Westbrook was drafted technically by Seattle, and then a couple of weeks later they became OKC. Durant, and this happened in 2010, right? In 2010, I was with everybody else just mad at LeBron and like, oh, you shouldn't have done this, da-da-da-da. And then after about a year, I sat back and I was like, all right, hold on. Like, why am I mad at LeBron? Like, why am I mad that he went to Miami? Like, he chose to do what he wanted to do. He played with his buddy. I would probably want to play with my buddy. You know, it's just people who basically decide to move their house. And, yeah, the fans get attached, but that's also your fault, you know, because LeBron's not the first one to do this. A couple of years before that, you had Pierce, Garnett, and Allen all team up together. The only difference was that the teams decided to trade each other, but players still moved. So you're just mad at like the player doing it, not the executive. And I always thought it was kind of a weird dynamic to be mad at somebody just because they decided to move. Like people decide to move all the time from Sacramento to LA to New York.
But I mean, you're going to of course be bitter when you can say arguably the top three player in the league, but I'll say two leaves a team to go to a brand new team and basically copies LeBron James to win a title. Of course, you're going to be bitter as a fan of the team that lost that player. Yeah, no, and I get, like, for the fans themselves who got invested with the team, I get that because you know, it's a breakup, more or less, right? Like, you had someone who you cared about leave you, and you're going to be hurt by that. Right. I get that. I can understand that, you know, you being mad. It was everybody else. It was all the media who don't live in OKC, who don't have any kind of emotional connection outside of liking to see Russ and KD play. Like, that's when I didn't understand why people got so mad at it. If you were, like, somehow invested in it, fine, I get it. But it was just one of those things where him coming back now, he is going to get just all of the boos because I think actually one thing that softens it a little bit for him, honestly, though, is the fact that they're playing as well as they are because they're, like, I think 8 games above 500, and Russell Westbrook is trying to get a triple-double every single night. And him being at home, he's going to try and go neck first to the rim again. So the fact that they're doing relatively well, I think, makes the boos maybe die down a fraction. Not a lot, but like a fraction. But if the team was, instead of 8 games above 500... excuse me. It's all right, buddy. Don't worry. I get what you're saying.
You know, if they were like, 15 games below 500, then I think the boos would have come even harder.
Kind of like when LeBron went back to Cleveland because the Cavaliers were simply just a terrible team and a train wreck without him. So I get that, and the Warriors are playing so well. I really don't see them losing this game. I think there might be a little bit of a let-up because they are playing tonight in Memphis, so they're playing back-to-back nights. Right. The Thunder played last night at home, so they have a day off of rest today, and then they play tomorrow night where they're not having to travel. So they have a little bit of more rest than do Golden State. So let's do predictions. Sure. Let's do 3 things. Let's do the game. Mm-hmm. Let's do Westbrook's performance and Durant's performance. So I'll give the Warriors the win. The Warriors should win the game. I'll say somewhere between 10 to 15. I think it'll be a relatively comfortable victory for them. I think Westbrook probably takes 30 shots.
Sounds about right.
Scores 27 to 30 points. Gets about 7 or 8 assists and 7 or 8 boards. And then I think Durant honestly goes off. I think he's scoring at least 30.
No, I don't think Durant does. I don't think Durant does that. I think Durant would be cooler with kind of having it like a team performance necessarily, not having it all on himself, because I don't think he wants to be like a focal point of this game, right? I don't think he's that dude. They had him yesterday. He was on Bill Simmons' podcast, and he was talking about, everything about how he likes to play and stuff like that. He said like the highest he's ever, they asked him like, what's the most you've ever scored in a game, like in your life? He said like 66 points, something like that, when he was at Rucker Park. So he's like referencing games that weren't necessarily NBA, and he's saying like the way he likes to play is, he didn't say this, but it was kind of LeBron-y, right? It was kind of where I don't care necessarily if I score 60 points. Like I'd rather kind of have like an all-around game where I can get rebounds, assists, and stuff like that. So I can see him scoring like 20 to 25, but having like 10 assists or something like that. Like kind of have everybody get involved, kicking it out to Steph, kicking it out to Draymond, stuff like that. I can see him doing that. To where Russ, he's just going to be like, no. I'm going to score like 50 on like 95 shots. Kind of Kobe in his last game style. Like, no, I'm going to do this. Like, Oladipo, you go to the corner, you go over there. Steven Adams, you get away from me. I got this kind of thing.
I mean, in the 2 games Durant has played Oklahoma City, although both of them being at Oracle Arena in Oakland, he scored 39 points in the first meeting and 40 in the second. So he's averaging 39.5.
Right.
So I honestly do think he goes off. I think he probably tries to push the issue.
Mm-hmm. Both those games were okay.
Probably takes more shots than normal because he's going to be back in Oklahoma City. He's going to probably receive boo birds every time he touches the ball, starting lineups and everything. But don't forget, Anthony, we have one other controversy that, quite honestly, I'm looking forward to in this game.
What's that?
That is Russell Westbrook. Of course, Russell Westbrook.
Sure.
Against Zaza Pachulia.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
After Zaza, quote unquote, fouled him hard.
Yes.
He's going to make sure he gets him back.
After he stood over him.
Quite interesting how that could play out tomorrow night. It's definitely going to be stealing a lot of the headlines. I'll talk about it on Monday with Pauline, and I'm definitely going to be looking forward to the storylines from the game.
See, that I could see him, because I don't know if you saw when OKC played, I think it was Utah, he tried to go ham on Gobert. Like, he tried to dunk all over, I think it was Rudy Gobert.
And Rudy Gobert at 7'2", one of the best shot blockers in the league.
Yeah.
Something that you probably shouldn't do.
Like, he tried to dunk on, and had it not been just like a fraction, it wasn't like Gobert blocked it. I think it was Gobert. I want to say it was some, shot blocker like that. And Gobert didn't block it. It was just one of those things where he was just like a little off Westbrook. Like, it was a fraction off as how he jumped and stuff like that. I can see him trying to do that on Zaza, because Zaza is not necessarily like one of those defensive guys. I can see him just like, if he gets the right opportunity, looking at him like, oh, I got this, and just trying to dunk all over him. And if he somehow falls down, like, if he fouls him and he falls hard or whatever, then that's when Steven Adams, because Steven Adams didn't play when Zaza stood over him. Steven Adams is going to play now, and Steven Adams doesn't care. He will fight you for whatever reason. He's got hit in the jaw by Zach Randolph and didn't move. He's got a jaw.
Whenever I think of Steven Adams, I think of in the Olympics for New Zealand when they did like the New Zealand tribal stomp, and James Harden just looks at him like, what?
Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Like, what? Like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to find out what happens tomorrow, and we'll, of course, talk about it on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take the last break of the show. After the break, we're going to talk about some news in the NFL. Carson Palmer is returning for Arizona. We'll debate if you could have each of them for 1 year. Would you rather have Carson Palmer as your quarterback or Tony Romo? We'll talk about that right after the break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So 8 days after Larry Fitzgerald announced he will be returning for another season in Arizona. Carson Palmer has done the same. The 37-year-old quarterback said, "My intent was to take some time after the season to get away and see where I was physically and mentally. On both fronts, I can say I'm ready to get back to work and prepare for the 2017 season. This is a phenomenal group with a very special opportunity in front of it. I know how rare that is, and I couldn't be more excited to be a part of it." He's going into his last year of a $17.5 million contract. He's 37. He threw for 4,233 yards last year and 26 touchdowns. The fourth time out of the last 5 years he's thrown for over 4,000 yards. So, Anthony, the question I'm going to pose to you, you have Carson Palmer at 37. I'd say this is probably going to be his last year. It's the last year of his contract. I don't know where else he could go after this. Mm-hmm. So I'd say this is probably going to be his last year. You have 1 year left with him. You have a 36-year-old Tony Romo. If you could have either of them for 1 year, who do you choose?
I still probably go Carson Palmer, and the only reason why I say that is because he's more aware of the strengths and weaknesses of the team. He did have a lot worse year. He went from 35 touchdowns and 11 interceptions to 26 and 14, which is not good by any stretch. And also, not even that, the yards were down, but he also played one less game, so that'll happen with that. That part's fine. But his average, as far as average yards per pass, that went down from 8.7 to basically 7.1. He just all the way around was a different guy. He was somebody that you didn't necessarily have as much faith in. The deep ball wasn't the same. He didn't get as many players. John Brown didn't have the kind of next step you'd hope he would have.
I think that'll happen this year without Floyd there.
Sure. And you basically had to rely on David Johnson the whole year, right? Which he was really, really good at doing that. But also, because Palmer took such a step back, it was a different kind of a team. And this is the team that you thought, especially adding Chandler Jones in the offseason, you thought that he could be something that propelled the team to the playoffs, maybe even the Super Bowl. The thing with Romo is you don't know if he's going to get hurt. Say what you will about Carson Palmer, he had a bad year, that's fine. At least he's out there, right? At least he's somebody that was out there every single game. You talked about having 4,000 yards for the last 5 years. That's because the 1 year he had 6 games that he played. Everything else, it was at least 15, right? So he at least gets out there for his team, minus a game. That's whatever. If you only miss one game, you can deal with that, as compared to Romo, where he missed basically the entire season this year. And I think he only played 4 or 5 games a year before that. So he's someone that's not healthy, and now you're going to throw him into a new situation with people he doesn't know. So I would still stick with Palmer because he's still someone that at least can do things that Romo can do, as compared to something like Alex Smith in Kansas City, where Romo can do more things than Alex Smith. Alex Smith is limited in what he's either can do or wants to do or whatever, because he just doesn't throw the deep ball. At least Palmer can do those things that Romo can do, and he's more comfortable where he's at.
For Arizona, I'll agree with you. I would go with Palmer. But if I have basically a team that's got a good offensive line, and I'm picking just simply on quarterback play, I'd go with Romo. I really do think he's just better physically. The problem is, as you mentioned, the risk of an injury. Carson Palmer got hit 57 times last year. That was the third most in the league.
Right.
Tony Romo only needs to get hit 5 times.
Yeah,
to
Romo
get
got
injured,
cracked
not
in the
57.
Romo got cracked in the preseason, was out. Now the injury, looked bad enough, but he got hit once in the preseason and then gone.
Yeah, so if you put Tony Romo on Arizona, I think it's only really a matter of time before he, I guess you want to say, kicks the bucket and gets injured again, whether it be a back or his clavicle.
Sure.
He's had injury issues with those in the past. So for Arizona, I'd probably go with Palmer. But I think, honestly, on our neutral team, I'd go with Romo. I just kind of have more trust in him. He doesn't throw as many interceptions. They're both capable of good things, throwing the ball down the field, bigger physical guys. So I'd probably go with Romo, and I do think that there's a lot of good landing spots for Tony to go. I'd say, for me, the best one's probably Houston. I think that gives him the best chance to succeed, and they're a quarterback away. But the problem is they have probably the worst contract in the history of the NFL sitting under center, and he's wearing number 17, Brock Osweiler. So they have to decide what they want to do with that. But for this instance, I'd go with Palmer as well, because the offensive line's not the greatest. You have a stud running back, in my opinion, the second best running back behind Le'Veon Bell, and just a 3-down back that can do it all. Yeah. So you have that to lean on. You have one more year with Palmer. The offense is still good. Last year, the defense kind of let him down. We'll have to see if Arizona can have a bounce-back year.
Right, and that's the thing. that's the thing, you talked about with like Houston. Houston absolutely go with Romo because we've seen Osweiler. He stinks. He's no good. But someone like Carson Palmer, it's like he might not be good and he might have hit the wall. Like everything we're talking about, he can still do this, he can still do that. He might have 100% hit the wall last year in the playoffs because ever since that playoff game, he hasn't been the same guy. He might have gone off the cliff and we just haven't like fully...
Haven't noticed it yet?
Well, yeah, I think we noticed, but we haven't... Like, it's not as just like, no, he's done kind of thing, right? But with Osweiler, we've seen it basically since you were the backup in Denver. It's just like, maybe he's good. Let's see if this does well. And then he gets his start, and he's like, no, never mind. Bring it back. Tom Savage. Tom, go. Your turn.
And then Brock Osweiler comes back in.
Mm-hmm. And then that didn't work out well either. He had a little bit of a better game when he got back, but he still isn't somebody with everything that's around him, especially that defense that we saw, even with J.J. Watt gone, that defense is still insane. When you have, like with Denver, a team that talented on defense, you want to get a quarterback that is able to get the team to go to that next level, a la Peyton Manning. Even though he wasn't great, he was still smart enough, to lead the team after that. So
it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where Tony goes because I really do not think he has a future in Dallas this season. There's quite honestly, no reason for him to be there.
Jerry Jones still loves him.
With how Dak Prescott performed last year, he had, in my opinion, the greatest rookie season of anyone we've ever seen.
Right.
And you have that offensive line. You have Ezekiel Elliott, who's probably already a top 5 back, and I think next year will even be better because he'll be more involved in the passing game than he was this year. So Tony Romo's future's not there. You might as well get something for him if you can. There's going to be teams that are going to be desperate enough to make some sort of move for him, offer something, because we've seen it. You have to have a successful quarterback to win a Super Bowl. The Rams gave up everything except the barn for Stan Kroenke to get Jared Goff. The Eagles gave up everything to get Carson Wentz. And this year in the draft, it ought to be interesting to see what happens because you have San Francisco at 2 who needs a quarterback. Technically, Cleveland at 1 needs a quarterback, but they also have the number 12 pick, so they could potentially wait until 12 to get a guy like Deshaun Kaiser, Deshaun Watson, Mitch Trubisky, depending on how it goes. So it's going to be interesting to find out. But I think Arizona is another team, maybe that middle pack of the first round, if some of these quarterbacks drop, are going to be one that pulls the trigger on them because they'll let them sit for a year behind Carson Palmer. You have a great coach and a great offensive mind and a quarterback developer and guru in Bruce Arians. He's done great work with Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning. So you have a good coach there in Arians who can develop a young quarterback for a year and sort of give them the franchise next year. So I really do think Arizona's going there in the first round, depending on how, I guess you can say, those top 3 guys, those first-round projected guys, go in the draft.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So, I mean, we'll have to find out. Obviously, the NFL draft is in April. The Combine's coming up. I'm definitely excited for that. Going to see how some of these guys perform. And a lot of these quarterbacks don't typically throw. They wait till their pro day, but we'll have to have some news on as far as what happens in that regard. Breaking news into the show really quickly. Tiger Woods has withdrawn from his next 2 scheduled events because of that back injury Anthony and I talked about, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, about that.
In Dubai, he pulled some muscles in his back, had some back spasms. So he's going to have his back reassessed, so he's pulling out of his next 2 scheduled starts, which to me isn't that big of a deal. I think Tiger's really only focused on being ready in April for the Masters, so it's not much of a big deal there. But nevertheless, Tiger Woods is out for his next 2 scheduled starts, and Jabari Parker re-tore the same ACL in his knee that he tore in his rookie season. So already in his 3rd year, 2 blown-out knees on the same knee. I mean, he might even be done, man. Like, it's hard enough to come back from 1 ACL injury, let alone 2.
Yeah, no, it's probably, honestly, like,
which is definitely bad for Milwaukee and bad for Jabari.
He's just one of those, I mean, because he got it early on, and now he's just, you're out for another year, and he's doing really well this year was the thing, and just now it's one of those things where you got to deal with it again, as far as he goes, like getting back to normal and everything else like that. Giannis is still great, but you got to find other people to build around him now because you can't, if you have 2 ACL injuries, like it's hard to, as cold as it is to say, like trust him going forward.
Exactly, and maybe he can do like DeJuan Blair status and just have no ligaments.
I was going to say have no ACLs.
Take them both out. All right, we'll take That's going to be signing off for us. We're going to take a break, a weekend break, back in on Monday here in the studio. Signing off, my name is Ben.
And I'm Anthony.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Have a good weekend, and we will see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.